Welcome to episode 369 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. We're going to talk about robots in sorting centres today. Joining me in a moment is Dirk Van Lammeren. Dirk is the Chief Commercial Officer at Prime Vision. We're going to talk not just about robots in sorting centres, but about humans in sorting centres, how the two interact, what the advantages are of having robots working alongside humans. And we're going to talk about various other things relating to parcel centres, including parcel volumes. So, joining me in a moment, Dirk Van Lammeren from Prime Vision. Joining me on the line is Dirk Van Lammeren. Dirk is the Chief Commercial Officer at Prime Vision. Dirk, welcome. We're going to get in some very interesting subject matter today, talking about robotic sorting and all of these sorts of things. But before we get to that, let's just talk a little bit about sorting centres and some of the issues that delivery companies face, whether it's a postal operator or a private courier, whoever it might be, those issues that delivery companies face in operating sorting centres. What are you seeing out there when you're talking to these companies and they're looking at improving the sorting systems, installing a new sorting system, whatever? What are the problems that they're talking about?
Hi, Ian. Thanks for having me. There are multiple challenges, the sorting divisions of companies, but also warehousing in general that they currently face. And, volumes are to just call out one, volumes are unpredictable. We all think they grow, but sometimes they stagnate. And so imagine you're a head of a sorting center. How do you organize for that? The volume is changing, but also the shapes of the things we distribute, we have to handle. How do you deal with that? People, and we will talk about it in the show, I think, later, about people. How do you retain them? How do you get them in? That has changed dramatically since COVID, and people made different choices in where they want to spend their working life. So it's really a lot of impact that we see, and that we, as a technology company, help to address.
You just mentioned a couple of the things there, which really ranges everything from the technical side of things through to the human side of things. And when I say technical, it could be, the fluctuating volumes, it could be the space you've got, and then the human side of it is, attracting and retaining employees. One of the other things, though, is about the investment that's required. What are the sorts of concerns that are coming from delivery companies when they're talking to you? What the concerns about whether it's investment that's concerned or how they're planning, especially in respect to those fluctuating parcel volumes that you just mentioned?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, because the availability of technology, the availability of automation in that sorting center or in that warehouse, you could easily argue, it's easy to invest. I have to do that, whether it's to get the volume through or to retain my people and make it better for them to work in an environment like this. There's always an investment and a cost associated with it. And I don't know whether you've heard, but I was in Berlin at the Leaders in Logistics conference last week. And there was one of the presentation, I think it was from a German provider, who said there's an excess sorting capacity in Germany alone of 20%. 20%, imagine. And when you realize that, it's not just one company looking to sort parcels, but it's everybody looking at it. So there's a really big pressure on pricing. So if you offset the need to automate, on the other hand, that you need to be cheaper, that is the paradox that a lot of our customers find themselves in. And that is a difficult one, because you have to take into account, is it fun for staff to work with? Will I retain my staff? Will I have a cheaper run cost for it, so I'll be more competitive for my customer? And that's why you need to guide your customers carefully through the landscape of these investments.
Can we dive into? I just said dive into, like a real podcast host. Dirk, did you like that? Dive into it. We'll dive into this idea that you just mentioned about the employee side of things, because employees, or the human factor, whatever you want to call it, in sorting centres, comes down to things like, well, we mentioned attracting employees, retaining employees, but also there's making the workplace safe.
Yeah.
And well, maybe we should just start with that because I've got more questions, right? But perhaps we just start with that. How does delivery center automation fit into things like hiring, retention, and safety for workers in sorting centers?
It's paramount, obviously. With our clients and talking to a lot of postal and parcel operators across the world, they now starting to have chief retention officers in the board. They have vast teams of people that do nothing else but looking after the well-being of people, but in a different fashion. I think we've always looked after our people, but the way now is to make it easier for them to work in a safer environment, deal with increasing complex technology, and make it, do it in a way that they want to come back tomorrow and they still want to work in your warehouse because it's very volatile today. That is an important fact. The other thing is, when you think about it, maybe 5-10 years ago, business cases were all about value, cost out. Is it cheaper? Is it more value, a dollar value or euro value is being created? Nowadays, I also found that the human factor is also part of our business cases. And it's easy to say that previously we would automate to reduce staff and have a cheaper operation. Today, it's the opposite. Today, a lot of our clients ask us to put automation in through software or robots, as you mentioned, just to have people stay in. So it's a funny paradox that we're saying and that we're seeing, and that means that it's an exciting time for our clients and for companies like us, as I said, to guide them through all the solutions that can help it to make it fun, to make it safer, and to establish a better relationship with your people.
You just mentioned this paradox, I think is the word you used, where it used to be that automation would reduce headcount. And now the technology is not necessarily about reducing headcount.
Previously, it was to reduce staff. Now, automation is put in to make it more fun for people to work in your center so that they choose your center and you will retain the people that you have. Because you can't run a sorting operation without people. There's still people needed to manage it, to run it. And that's why automation is so important. And let me give you an example. So we're next to robots. Privision is also known for putting flow projectors, we call them in. They're little light projectors that you put above a chute or a moving belt. And we do nothing else but projecting a number on it, a digit, through laser, 20 parcels at the same time. We found out that people find it fun to work with because they can pick all the fours and put them in roll cage 4. It's kind of gamified. But a side effect was where we saw one of our first customers that we had 25 chutes on one side of the center with the projector and 25 had no projector. People started to clock in 5 minutes earlier to go to a projector chute. You know what I mean? And to work with that, because they were not, they didn't have to wear the hand glove, the sticky hand glove. It was easy and it helped them through the day. And they came back next day, clocked in earlier and went to a shoot with the flow projector. And I think that's a testament that it's working. And I think it's something operational managers should look at.
Let's talk then about robotic sorting. We've talked about automation in warehouses, in sorting centers for many, many years. But yes, robotic sorting is something that's a little bit more recent. And well, first of all, how would you define robotic sorting?
Robotic sorting for us as a company is nothing else but having autonomous moving robots, vehicles, helping you to take the hassle out of manual work. We still carry a lot of parcels in a given center. We still have no solutions for what do we do with oversized parcels that we can't move on a conveyor. That is a problem because we don't have enough people to do that anymore, and it's very prohibitive in terms of working conditions. So robotic sorting is a device, a robot with wheels, is a software layer that helps the robot to know where it is and to drive around. And just like a sorter, a traditional sorter, you integrate it through interfaces with everything that's in your sorter center, and then it moves around in the way you want it to go.
So when you say it moves around in the way you want it to go, does that mean that it's like it has a level of autonomy, or is it limited to fixed paths within the sorting center?
There are more solutions in the market. The solution Privision provides is a fully autonomous driving vehicle. We do that by mapping the floor. So before we go into a facility, we will map the floor. We will learn the floor, and of that map, that is fed into the software layer, and then the autonomous robots know where they are. So they don't need, Ian, they don't need a given infrastructure or lines or QR codes on the floor. They just use the characteristics of the floor to know where they are. And once they have a parcel on them and they are associated with the parcel, they will autonomously find their way, navigate together, even if they're 80 or 100 or 150, and bring the parcels to, for instance, in the US, for us, some of our customers would bring it to 300 directions.
So it's integrated with the sorting system as well. So it knows it can go to a sorting belt or to a chute or things like that.
It's very simple, yeah. You have either automatic induction with a robot arm or with a conveyor, or manual induction. By taking a simple scan of the parcel, we go back to the sort plan system, we derive a destination, and then the robot knows what direction to go to. So for instance, to one of the 300 boxes that it can drop parcels off.
At the outset of our conversation, Dirk, we were talking about some of the problems that the postal operators and couriers and warehouse operators bring to you at Prime Vision when they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
So let's talk about robotic sorting then. What are the kinds of problems robotic sorting helps solve? Or indeed, what are some of the solutions, I suppose, that robotic sorting can bring to a sorting center?
The main advantage of robotic sorting is that it can help you to address flexibility in volume. So if you don't have enough volume to justify a big sorter machine, which is still valid for the large volumes, the no regret volume that will hit your sorting center, but it's not always the case. Sometimes volume is volatile, or you have overflow of parcels or items that the sorter can't handle. Then we see that there's value for the robots to take over the overflow, or as I said earlier in the last question, sort parcels that are not suitable for a traditional conveyor because they're large, because they're cylinder shaped, or because they're even too light, like a lot of the parcels we see today, and they would fall off the sorter. That's when the robotic sorting comes in. And the second case we see often is in our world of sorting, we still see a lot of manual sites that are not big enough to put automation in, or if it's too, there's not enough space or not enough investment available. In that cases, the robot sorting has a very low threshold of starting your first automation in center, relieving the people, and getting with the same people a higher throughput in a short time frame.
When it comes to flexibility, this is one of the things that we've talked about a bit in the postal sector lately. It's not just about the fluctuating volumes. It's also, well, I've outgrown this sorting center. I need to move somewhere else, or I'm amalgamating two sorting centers into one. These sorts of things. I'm sure you hear this a lot. So how does robotic sorting fit into that?
This is a very strong point of robotic sorting. The fact that you're not dealing with a fixed infrastructure that is bolted to the ground, you can easily lift and shift these. I think we have currently about 35 sites that we operate in the United States alone. And I think in the last 3-4 years, we've already done 25 lift and shift, because sometimes the volume dries up, it stops, or the problem is bigger in another facility. We would then take up the robots, go to the other facility, in half a day map the floor again, because it's a very typical floor for that sorting center, and then we would install the robots again. Normally, we could do that within a day, and then they start to drive around. Another benefit is what we saw a lot of our customers is that they don't want the fixed infrastructure anymore, because they don't know what the world looks like in 6 months. What will my volume be? My SKUs? What will I sell? How many of it? To how many directions? Am I going to buy an auto store type of arrangement or not? And they don't want to be obstructed by things that are fixed. And that's why they go more and more to robotic sorting, to have a more flexible system when things change, when you want other things in your sorting process.
Earlier, we were talking about the human factor, not the great book by Graham Greene, I hasten to add, but the human aspect of it. You were talking about, it was making some very interesting points about the enjoyment or satisfaction of work that can be enhanced by
Yeah.
working with technology. What about the safety side of things? So that's a
Yeah.
huge thing for a lot of big employers, isn't it? Getting safety right. So how does working with robots help with the safety aspect or the working conditions inside of sorting centers?
Yeah, that is very important. Safety is always in an operation like this is very important. The way we deal with that is that we train staff of our clients to deal with the robotic sorting system, and we made it very safe uh, through um, um, different technologies. So there's technology cameras on it that will observe whether there's people around, and it will immediately stop, because we would like a sorting operation where people can move and co-work with the robots. The speed is adjusted to that, and all the safety measures on board for the robot, but also the people. They carry a stop button on their wrist. They can stop the system. The central operator can stop the system. And to be honest, in 5 years, we never had a personal injury due to the robots. But you need to train people and you need to take them through it, but you also need to make sure that the technology is robust enough to guarantee that. And we have very good experience with that. So in our sorting centers, Ian, you won't see fences around the operation, but we make sure that only people that are instructed will co-work with the robots.
It's also interesting what you're saying earlier about using the robots to carry some of those heavy parcels that might
Yes.
ordinarily be a two-person lift, or would have to go, be manually loaded into a cage to be rolled off somewhere else. So this, to me, seems like this is good use of technology to reduce those heavy lifting injuries, those stooping and bending injuries, and things like
Yeah.
that. Dirk, can you just share an example then of how staff in a sorting centre have been interacting with their robotic co-workers, shall we say?
We have some great examples, and the one that comes to mind is in one of the facilities in the US where I was visiting, and I saw that they were naming the robots. So by simply putting a piece of duct tape on it and putting a name on it, they were personalizing the robots. And to me, that was a testament of that they really are part of the workforce and become co-workers. And some of the operators, they even told me, I'm calling them my babies. So I think it's really becoming a part of the way we operate our operations.
Just to round out our conversation, Dirk, can you just share a little bit more about flexibility in sorting centre operations?
The only limitation, to be honest, is the floor space, because we need floor space for the robots to operate. But we've seen cases already where the volume increased dramatically, and by just putting a few robots extra, if floor space allowed, we would be able to sort a larger volume. Another example is a site we do here in Europe, is where we take all the picked items from a ASRS and let's say an AutoStore system. So it spits out a container with products. We'll move it on the robot to the box setup and the box closing machine, and then we move it to dispatch. The customer, after 6 months, already added 2 new stations at the AutoStore. And in previous days, you had to reconfigure your whole sorting plan and everything, all your conveyors that were fixed and bolted to the ground. Now they just add a small conveyor, and then the robots go there and they pick up the parcels. So scalability is much, much easier because you can add robots, and the rest of the infrastructure, the floor, the servers, the spare parts are already in place. So they can go quite easy.
Well, Dirk, we've covered a lot of territory here today, including not just the robots, but how humans interact with the robots, which I think is a hugely important thing. If people want to find out more about Prime Vision and the range of services that you offer, how should people get in contact, or where can they go to find out more?
Well, they can always look on your website, Ian, but please go to primevision.com. And there's a lot of content there, white papers, information, consults. So please go there, and I'd love to get in touch with you.
Primevision.com is the website, and I'll put a link on thepostalhub.com in case you've not managed to jot that down while you're out walking the dog or training for your next triathlon or whatever it is that you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. Dirk Van Lammeren, Chief Commercial Officer at Prime Vision, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thanks, Ian.
That's all for this episode of the Postal Hub podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast in your favourite podcast platform, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the other ones. And after you've subscribed, please leave a review or leave a 5 out of 5 rating. That'd be great. Or 4.9 out of 5 if it permits that. I somehow doubt it, but you never know. You can also subscribe to my newsletters. Go over to thepostalhub.com and you can sign up for my weekly newsletter that goes out whenever there's a new episode of the Postal Hub podcast. I also publish a daily newsletter for those of you who like a bit of delivery news in your inbox. It's called the Daily Delivery Digest, and it includes all the headlines from around the delivery world each business day. And then there's the Post Office Digest, and I honestly can't remember the address to go to sign up for that. But sign up for it. Follow me on LinkedIn and I'll share the address there, or email me. Just email me. Email me and say, Ian, how can I subscribe to the Post Office Digest? Because I want a monthly newsletter about post office stuff, just post office stuff, not e-commerce fulfillment, not parcel lockers, not, I don't know what else we talk about, just post office stuff. My email address is ian@thepostalhub.com, so you can email me about that or anything. I don't mind. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.